Hello, hero. It's Lucy Lannon. Before we start, right, you see this dress? I hugged Henry Rollins in this dress. He took one look at the fact that I was wearing it and gave me the most withering glare you've ever seen in your life. And it was one of the greatest moments in my existence. So as we're at the rusty part of the spectrum today, I'm very pleased to wear it and relive those happy memories. I'm just going to put my shades on because this is bright, man. This is pretty insane. But I am wearing red-orange. This is a red-orange light. I don't know whether that'll come across in post, but hey-ho, it looks a little yellow to me, but hey. Basically, we're at stage 2 of our spectral navigations, going on a jaunt through the rainbow to do randomised tarot readings. You don't know what's coming. I don't know what's coming. There's going to be 3 piles associated with words to do with the magical borderlands between red and orange. And we're just going to go for it, kind of live, not YouTube live, but pretty much live, and see what comes up. I have no idea. Right, so, piles. When I think of red mixed with orange, if you were in the last video, and if you weren't, you should probably check it out, we sort of went into passion, pleasure. There was a bit of a sexy interpretation for one of the piles. I don't know whether that applies to everybody, but that sort of follows on into orange territory, which is about creativity, playfulness, just the fun parts of life, right? This is why orange and orange red are kind of my favourite colours. So the first pile will be to do with, now what shall I call it? I'm going to call it the pleasure pile, but I'm also going to call it luxury. Because when I think of red-orange, I think of not just rust in terms of like rusty metal, but like deep rust, like old gold, where it's almost more red than it is really golden. It's kind of a beautiful bronzish, warm, I don't know, I can't even describe the colour, but you know the one that I mean. It's like rust but up a level in classiness, gold but up a level in warm log fire vibes, just that autumnal glittering kind of a thing. And that always makes me think of luxury, opulence, old objects, but we'll get onto that in later readings when we cover antiquity, when we do kind of yellow goldish stuff. But yeah, so this is your luxury. This is the finer things in life, pleasure, but also sexual pleasure, because sexual? Sexual pleasure, Jesus, I can't even say it. Because we're incorporating the passion of red. So yes, you're living your best life. Yes, it's very playful and childlike because you've got the orange vibe, but also with that red thing, it's very urgent. It's very, the creativity is very reproductive, very bodily, shall we say. So that might come up in this pile. I don't know, honestly. I didn't know last time. It's a lucky dip. And we're using for this the Smith-Waite Black and Gold edition. So I'm just going to kind of briefly make some reversals and shuffle that now. And then we'll get into what your other piles are going to be. Let's do 3 of these and then we'll do a proper shuffle when we get to it. I think that's the best way. Please let me know if you... Whoop, all right. Playful vibes already interfering. Please let me know if you like the format where you can kind of see me work, because I don't know what you want on this channel. There's not much feedback in the comments. Let me know and spread the word if you're new to me, because I'm pretty new to YouTube. I've been reading for a long time. Excuse me while I just a hot water bottle because it's cold. Yeah, I've been reading a long time, sort of 11-ish years and then 6 professionally, but this is a new platform for me, so if you like my style, please share. Anyway, right, pile 2, which is going to be the Tarot of the Divine. Excuse me while I readjust again. I don't want to get burns, you know. Sorry. I was going to tell you a whole anecdote then about a guy that lives upstairs that got hocker-bocker burns and was very put out despite being about 6'4". But I'm not gonna stay here forever. Tarot of the Divine. Okay, when we think of red-orange, we are also thinking about orange being like trickster energy, goddess and god energy, the playfulness of the divine, the interplay of unpredictable elements. And then red being like energy, life force, propulsion, immediacy, for those of you who got pile 3 last time. So with this tarot of the divine, with it being sort of very heavy on the folklore, I thought the second pile could be synchronicity, right? Any kind of reading about stepping into the flow or about synchronicities and signs that you've been experiencing outside of divination, just to get a bit of feedback from the universe, right? So if that's your jam, then pile 2, Tarot of the Divine. And then finally, we have the Marseille. If you haven't caught any of my other readings, or you're just not familiar with the series I have running, there is a Marseille mini alphabetized lucky dip going on, where we pick like a word beginning with A, a word beginning with B for each pile. And we always read with this VAV Marseille from 1650, which is just, it's very Tommy Cash in the expressions. You know, you can sort of feel the boils coming off all the characters in it, and I love it. It feels authentic. So anyway, for pile 3, because the VAV sort of speaks to me of tarot itself and of how much I love to read, we're going to explore flow states. Like I say, we're approaching creativity because we've got an orange bit, but we're not quite fully in that vibe yet. Creativity proper, kind of readings to do with the arts, etc. Don't know what's going on here. That will be next, I want to say next week, but next time that we do this colour stuff, right? Because it won't be exactly weekly, because I do 4 uploads a week at the moment. So, yeah, flow states. Anything that you do where you, I don't know what is going on here, guys. Anything that you do where you lose all track of time, of space, you get into the zone. This also could be a fairly sexual pile. For me, like red-orange is the sexiest combo of colours when we're doing like tertiaries. So it may be that you lose track of time because you're banging somebody. Or it may just be something like that you're writing, something immersive in an artistic sense. We're not ready yet, guys, we've got to wait. Or just anything that takes your attention away, or indeed that you want to take your attention away. I don't want to make it sound like a freeze response, but this is also the pile for anything that's like an escapist activity you're doing, or something that just transports you from the everyday realm, if that makes sense. So, just to run through them again, we have luxury and pleasure for pile 1, we have synchronicity for pile 2, and we have flow states for pile 3. And I'll see you in the stamp. Right. I don't know why I just slammed that down there. Anywho. Okay, luxury, opulence, also pleasure. We're getting started already. Is that reversed, guys? Yeah. Okay. All right, steady. Now, which way up would you be? Right. Okay, so starting with the Hermit reversed, and we have as a clarifier the 3 of Swords. So I can already see, pile 1, that pleasure is a strange word to begin on, because, sorry, I'll just move that into shot. There we go. Because we're dealing with some measure of heartbreak, we're perhaps dealing with somebody, you or somebody else, who is returning to friendships, socialization, pleasurable activity, following a period of grief, loss, just a heartbroken, dissatisfied, horribly emotional phase. I want to say like coming out after lockdown as well, although that might be a bit sort of belated for many of you, but I know some of you, like me, are disabled viewers, so it may be that you're just kind of venturing out after all of the chaos of the last couple of years. Then we've got the the 4 of Cups. Very discombobulated today. I think it's the colour, right? I think it's a bit more chaotic than last time. And then the Empress reversed. So, there is an offer being made. Perhaps you're being invited to events that are potentially pleasurable. That may be hookups for some of you. It may be that you've been asked out on a date. If you are in the sexual interpretation category, because this is a general reading, so I'm reading for lots of people. But certainly, like, there's been something suggested to you in terms of getting back out there, and frankly, you're not feeling it. I am feeling this is more you than somebody else, but take it as it resonates. So Empress reversed, any gender, is somebody who's not in alignment with pleasure, quite frankly. It's also like blocked Taurian energies, which is interesting because for me, I map the colour wheel to the astrological wheel. So my placement for Venus and indeed Taurus is a red-orange kind of coppery colour. So to have that blocked energy come up in the first pile for this particular spectral reading is really, really on point, I guess, right? So tell me more about this. We've got the Hanged Man in reverse. You're feeling that it's definitely the time to come out of this energy. You've been hanging around for long enough. It may be that you've had a long period of introspection, meditation. You've really sorted your shit out, right? I'm hearing gisting, for those of you familiar with that channel and everything, but it's, you know, get your shit together, right? You've been working on yourself is the most simple way to put it. But then what's the hesitancy? I don't... What I'm not getting yet, guys, I'm getting this picture of somebody who's been inside for a long time, or maybe at least just like slightly more socially withdrawn than normal, because they've been working on themselves, working on their lives, trying to rebalance their energies and get it out of grief and, you know, melancholy, a morose kind of a feeling that we've got down here. And you've been offered out, and the Empress upright, you're more than capable of having a good time. In fact, you'd probably be a bit of a star of the show if you were to go out and party, but why is it that you're not taking that? What's going on? Okay, King of Swords. There is an overriding tendency towards logic. There is a almost an imposition of the analytical. You might be my ruminators. It may indeed be that you've been dealing with depression, and the kind of rumination and catastrophization is why you're not yet returning to social circles. But it's like, I mean, the King's kind of the highest up in the suit for that particular thing. It's not a major, but it's strong enough to counteract this Empress at the moment. So it's almost like the head of your head, the big boss, if you like, of your brain, is saying no, even if the rest of that suit, the rest of your mind, other kinds of logics, the words of your friends and family from this offering, you know, everything running counter to this guy is still not quite having the ability to overpower him, which is really odd because the Hangman reverse is major, so it should, you know, if we were playing this as trumps, it should overpower the King's Swords. Just going to move that up so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so why is it? Why, like, we've got the situation, we've got that it's, all right, yeah, we've got that it's not happening. I'm not taking all of those, so you're going to have to be clear. Okay, that came back flipped. Well, yeah, we know, but sorry, I will explain this once I've finished chatting to the sources. Oh, God, guys, right, okay. This is actually fairly similar to Power 1 from last week, where we did a reading about pain and getting over it and getting back out into the world after it. But you've got the Five of Cups, which is a grief card. This is somebody who is very focused on these fallen cups instead of the assets that remain available to them. So it's like, along with this rumination, you're very much looking at what you've lost instead of what you stand to gain. Again, it's overpowering the bottom one, which is the Three of Cups, which is a celebration, a community, a literal party, right? This is a gathering of friends. It's almost like you can't even see the invitation from the Four of Cups to get to the Three of Cups because you've been in this space of, like, grief. And it's specific to grief. It's not just like, this one is very heartbreaking, but this one is lost futures, lost opportunities, paths that you could have gone down that are no longer possible. I'm hearing for some of you it is pandemic related, in that you were maybe like students or something during the time that this was all going off, and therefore you didn't have the normal end to that everybody else kind of gets. You didn't have, I don't know, maybe like exam season or senior year, or like you didn't get a prom, or just you're not prepared for the next stages socially. Like maybe some of you, you're going off to university, etc., but you're kind of not you don't feel ready to the extent that you feel other generations would have benefited from, because you've been inside for all this time, or having trouble speaking, which is you can't communicate this to other people very well. Or what I'm hearing stronger than that is that you don't feel entitled to express how sad you are about this. It's almost like the people around you are just saying, well, everybody's suffered in this time period, get on with it, which is very inconsiderate of them, very callous, very cold. I'm sure it's not ill meant, but at the same time, just know that that's a perspective that isn't the healthiest, because if you have these emotions, you need to process them, you need to feel them, you need to be angry about the fact that it was a bit of an injustice to have to go through this and do it all a different way. And therefore you are, I wouldn't say you are behind, but you're feeling behind socially, you're feeling left behind socially. I'm actually pretty surprised that the Five of Pentacles hasn't shown up yet, because it's like you're feeling left out, you're feeling ostracised. If you're not in the age group where that kind of narrative applies, by the way, this could be like the word that's coming up is like an excommunication of some sorts, but it's not as dramatic as that. I don't think you've been kicked out of church, right? Or felt the damaging effects, the repercussions within community that necessarily brings forward. But there's a kind of kicked out of the clubhouse vibe. That's what I'm getting. It's like, and it may not be that you were put in that position by other people necessarily. It's just that your block to pleasure is that circumstantially you haven't been able to get back out there, so that now you're being actively asked, you're being invited. And if not by friends and loved ones sort of immediately, certainly by the universe, because Four of Cups is very much like a message from, beyond. But then you're not responding to it, you're too much into grief. You can't even see the party going on. It's really disturbing. And I don't mean that in terms of you're disturbing. I mean that the situation would disturb anybody, right? It's very distressing, is what I want to say. Then you've got Death reversed. Again, we're getting the vibes of red pile 1. So if you resonate with that and you think you'd like to check out the rest of the spectrum, that reading may also be for you. And there may be related issues there in terms of explaining what it is that's gone off, that's kind of kept you, if not indoors, then at least sheltered within yourself, slightly less confident than before. There's a free try before you buy of my self-concept reading on this channel. So if you feel like your confidence is being affected by this, you've maybe taken a bit of a knock by whatever this is, that might be a good one to check out. Like I say, absolutely free. It's all just very strange. Right, I think I understand the circumstances, so can we please get a bit more information about like what you're getting at? Because for a reading about luxury and pleasure, I'm not feeling much of either. That's the thing. Like, your cards are very golden and luxurious, and I'm feeling the vibe of the colour, and I'm now in the vibe of the reading, having been a little nervous. But it's like you're still not quite letting me in there, pile 1. It's like there's a bit of a boundary, a bit of a block. I'm seeing the Six of Wands as I'm shuffling, which should be success. It should be kind of a victory parade, a return to the community in a very triumphant way. But instead of you feeling that, it's like you're too deep in grief, in hermit mode, I just need a little bit more time to work on this aspect of myself. That's a thing, actually. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome in this as well. So for those of you who have been working on yourselves, I want to say maybe to like feel like you're enough for a friendship, for a relationship, for a certain academic position even. There's like a sense of part of the reason that you've been doing maybe shadow work or just self-improvement, but to like an obsessive level, which is, the hermit in shadow is like super Virgo, right? It's the guy who has every self-help book on Kindle, or the girl who has, but it tends to be a bro thing, right? It's kind of overdoing that energy because of a feeling of lack, because of a feeling that you will be found out if you return to the group without healing all of your wounds all at once. Then people will see that you're not fully whatever it is, and I don't think that's accurate. Again, it's really similar to the first red reading. Okay, we have the Tower, right? So there was a specific moment, there was a specific crisis, event, singular, that brought all of this about. Can you tell me the nature of the Tower? Because we really should get into how we're going to get out of this, thanks. Okay, Two of Cups reversed and the Moon reversed. Right, for many of you, you did hop on because I said about it being like a sexual reading, and you were kind of hoping for maybe like a bit of a clear love reading wise, because the situation that has got you, frankly, feeling a little bit fucked up is the breakdown of a relationship, or a feeling of, what is it? It's like not knowing what the other person is thinking or up to in a way that makes your emotional self pretty like wild, pretty out of control, makes you feel like you're going through constant phases of emotion that you can't keep up with. The Moon in reverse is like the shadow of a Cancerian personality. Hi. Unpredictability and sometimes like irrationality, because it's not that we're how do I explain this without my doing my Cancers an injustice? It's not that we're feeling things any more or less, and I think sometimes with the Cancer personality people think that it's too dramatic or it can't be that intense because it's very quick moving, right? We're ruled by the Moon, so we go through phases sometimes 2-3 times in a day of extremely intense emotions over a thing. That doesn't mean that the stimulus for those emotions isn't proportionate to the emotional response. But I think that the speed with which you've been moving through different cycles of, oh, I definitely feel like this, oh fuck this person, oh no, I love this person, etc., etc., is sort of making you feel like an unstable character, or making you worry that other people perceive you as unstable. But it is a direct response to this Tower thing, which is another major. So it's a proportionate reaction. And the Two of Cups reversed is simply like the feeling of like a deep friendship or a soulmate connection, or a sort of one-on-one connection that is unmatched elsewhere in your life, that has just either fizzled out or become sabotaged or just disappeared altogether. I'm getting for a lot of you this is like a ghosting, the sudden end of a situationship, the sudden breakdown of a relationship at a time where you were already in behaviour that I would say for you is unusually introverted, right? So for those who are resonating with the thing of like what the pandemic has done to people in a younger age category, then perhaps it's that your key friendship within a particular group or the group itself has just like broken down. It's left you feeling like you're just wilding, you can't deal with yourself, and it may be that like that's having a knock-on effect on your family, or that you fear it would, or that you think that it would come across in like a social setting. There's very much a feeling of not being able to just like chill out at a party in case somebody sees what's going on, whether that be like the breakdown of a particular relationship and people are like, oh, haven't seen so-and-so since the breakup kind of energy, or whether it's just that you perceive that having lost certain connections or having felt disconnected from like a bestie or the most trusted person around you, that you're going to be like seen and found out as socially an outsider, or that you're going to be awkward, because that's the other thing, is like this whole theme of this reading is about your ability to take in luxury, to experience pleasure, to receive wealth, sex, joyful interaction with other people, affection. That's a big one, because a lot of these cards are very like cloaked, they're very anti-touch, right? So there's this sense of like, will people notice that I haven't had this stuff, or that this stuff has gone wrong for me in a way that prevents me from being able to tap into it at a later stage? And I think you wouldn't be here if the answer wasn't no, but it's almost like you had to come in on the pleasure seeker reading, like, yeah, I'm ready for a new start, wicked. So-and-so asked me to come round later, like, this is all great. For me to say, yeah, but it's not been all great though, is it? Or at least you're your interpretation of it is not so great. Your interpretation of like, I feel like the idea of doing these things and taking pleasure from them and luxuriating in them is a very different concept to what you feel the energy of the outcome would be. So it's like you can be really hyped and getting ready for the party, but then when you head over there, you have this fear that you might get in the door and freak out, or you might, again, like give yourself away. And that's a horrible sort of way to think about it, or thing to say from me. This isn't at all what I'm judging of the situation, but I feel it's what you're fearing. And the Empress in blockage is an inability to receive abundance at its root, right? So if your finances have been blocked recently, if your love life is a shambles, anything along those kinds of lines that are to do with the inability to receive manifestations that you've already asked for, that may be because you have this secret fear that like, yeah, but I'm going to rock up and I'm going to get there and not be able to cash the check of that particular thing, you know, whether it's social or otherwise. And for many of you, it is social. So like I say, it's turning up at the party and they're being like, shit, I don't know how to behave anymore, which I get because I've been in 2 years. It's been a while, you know, and those first sort of ventures out to clubs and things were very like, do I remember how to do this? And even if you're a bit older and you're not doing that so much, I do get this sense that even if it's like coming up for the holiday season and I'm integrating with family again, or I'm seeing friends, or just doing something that used to be what you were fine doing, that you now feel like, oh God, when I actually get there, it's not going to be pleasurable. It's not going to be worth going, right? This is the person who accepts the invitation to the party and then cancels on the night because it's like too heavy, which I feel for you, man. That's been me a lot because of a lot of different, you know, other unrelated circumstances that have been going on in my life. But at the same time, like, I want to scream at you to get back out there, you know, or that it's not gonna, it's only gonna hold you back for as long as you kind of stay in this mindset that you are different, that you are an outsider, that you can't experience this luxury, right? The red-orange beam wants to kind of blast through your head and be like, no, you will receive pleasure. No, you will enjoy this. You will hook up with this person, or you will see your friends again, or you will resume studies in a completely new environment and embrace it, you know, because it's in your, not only is it in your fate, but it's in your kind of cachet of experiences that you wanted, that you asked for, that you wished for. And yet it's at your doorstep now, it's knocking, it's the Three of Cups offering you the cup, saying, hey, can I love you? Or hey, do you want to hang out? Or whatever it is. And you're like, nah, not anymore, nah. And again, it's very much reminding me of the bit I said in the red reading about like, I don't want to win anymore. I don't even want to try, right? It's like, but you're so close, man. And the fact that I saw that Six of Swords is like an indication of, Six of Wands. It's an indication of how close you are. So we've got the Ten of Wands, which we know you're very overburdened, right? This may be beyond this situation. You may just have a lot on, right? You may be working several jobs, working and studying, or just carrying a lot of social expectation and obligation. Perhaps before, actually, you were the kind of, how do I want to put it? You were the hub of your social network. You were the person who was always introducing other people to each other, having had that social ease to kind of always bring somebody back home to your circle with you, you know, always collect new friends, always kind of, it's like you were the dynamism within a particular group, or even within a relationship, that the rest of it revolved around, or that gave it energy of a certain kind, and that sort of invited more people to join in, or gave it a propulsion with that red energy to sort of keep travelling forward. And it's like that light has been extinguished from you at the moment because of this analytical tendency. And therefore you're a little bit sort of afraid about how that's going to all interconnect in your absence, and that is itself a burden, right? You are normally if you are younger and you are partying a lot, I get the sense that you're normally the person going to the parties going like, oh, hey, it's so-and-so, I know you from this, and you know my cousin, and blah, blah, blah. And then like being that networker for other people who feel nervous, or maybe like looking after people over a night. You know, you might be the designated driver or the designated mom or whatever, any gender, in terms of like seeing to people who do feel nervy or who are having difficulty socially, and making sure that they're integrated and they're having a pleasurable time. Again, like pleasurable time because it's a pleasure reading. But that is somehow flipped now to be like a position of burden, because your sort of dark secret, if you like, is that you don't feel capable of being that person anymore. And I think you are. I just think it's like you've not mentally recovered. You may even have emotionally worked through this stuff. You may have had a good cry, a good scream about it, whatever. But it's like the I don't want to call them logical even, but the thoughts that create the behaviour in like a CBT sense. Not the emotional trigger, not the event itself, but the thoughts that come after, right before you go wilding, right? That's the bit that's like needs interrupting in this. There needs to be an imposition of, if you want to be in this King of Swords energy of logic, the logical thing that needs to come through is, this is in my head, this is my mind doing this right now, and I can take a deep breath and I can think about the times that actually I was better at this. I was able to socialise, I was able to date, to have sex, to be a good student, to enter the workplace, whatever it is, right? I've done this before, and there are 10 million examples of me doing it well. So I'm going to kind of interrupt this whole process with that. Because again, we're not yet seeing a solution. We're just seeing problems and problems and problems. And I'm like, come on, it's a pleasure reading. How long is this going to go on? As long as it takes, by the way. All my readings go on as long as they need to. Yeah. Okay, so we've got the Six of Cups in reverse. So yeah, this is like a feeling of, sorry, I'm like leaning back. It's almost like you just want to recline. You're so tired. Yeah, this could be a childhood connection, or like a family thing, or somebody that you've known a long time. It could also be a soulmate if you're resonating with the Two of Cups reversed being relationship stuff. Excuse me, it's a very awkward place to sit. Excuse my slippers as well if they're on camera, they're very silly. But you know, pleasure, whatever. Yeah, so it's a connection that's been either going on for a long time or that you've kind of wanted for a long time, and that's why it's hurt. So I feel like this is clarifying this, but again, it's like we've got vertical clarifiers. We've got the horizontal emphasising the previous horizontal. It's almost like there's a fear with you of getting into conversation with a friend or somebody that you trust and just going off on a tangent about how terrible shit's been. Which again, I identify with, having been locked indoors throughout this entire thing. I think when I was released, like, my closest friends really got the brunt of like just me talking at them for hours, be like, ah. But you know, again, it's like even within the reading this is going on, and I'm here sort of wanting to just put my hands on your shoulders and be like, dude. It's okay. What do you want to do tonight? What do you want to do for fun? Yeah? Like, I acknowledge all of this, I accept all of this, but where do you get your kicks, right? Why is it that you wanted to come out? What do you want to try? Who do you want to see? What kinds of conversations do you want to have? If it's a date, like, who are you hoping to kiss at the end of the night? What kind of experience were you hoping for? Like, what are you looking for in a person? All of these things seem to be like factors you've forgotten. You've come to me for a pleasure reading, Power One, and you've forgotten how to receive pleasure. That's what it is. So right, I'm just gonna sweep all this out of the way because I'm sick of that shit, right? I never normally do this, but whatever. I can pick them up later. This is the attitude you need to have to those kinds of thoughts, by the way. Just like, off table, we don't need it. We know it. Each thought has emphasised the last. We've told our long story. It is a true story, by the way. It's not that, as I said, it's not that your emotions were disproportionate to what's happened to you. But it's more that, like, if one bad thought leads into the next bad thought leads into the next, we're going to be here all night and we're not going to get to how you can have a good time, which is what we want to know, right? How can you receive a good time? So, no more misery cards. I want to know how pile 1, I almost said pile 2, so you might want to check that out as well. How pile 1 is going to tap back into pleasure, luxury, receptivity, and Empress upright energy. Okay, that's a very distinct answer. I'm not going to take all those, but you want to talk to me on the bottom, don't you? Right, yeah, okay, that makes sense. You I can see, you I can see, and you I can see. So you guys are going back. The 5 of Pentacles was in there, as was Temperance, balancing out. Right, so the immediate answer of how you're going to receive pleasure again is the Lovers. This is a rebalancing of component parts of self. This is like a unification of the warring factions within your own brain, which I think is relevant now. But it's also, for many of you, a sexual experience or an experience of, if something's going to keep you going in terms of like getting out there again, just on a basic social level, even if it's going to like, I mean, we call it the corner shop here, but the word I'm getting is like going to the bodega, right? It's like, even if that's the extent of your interaction with the outside world right now, and that feels like a battle, the thing that you need to think about is, who am I going to meet that's exciting and new, right? And this may be somebody you had in mind at the beginning of the reading, but for many of you, I think it's just this idea of like, what's next? And if you can imagine that as a person and kind of draw them up as a character in your mind a little bit, not only is that an exercising manifestation, which personal level I can prove works, but it's also just going to be an impetus to move. It's going to be something that gets you rolling back into the possibility that you could meet a new friend, a new partner, that you could expand your circle, that you could be a bit of a bright light for everybody again, right? That you could step back into your former position. Now, the Queen of Swords is here, and, you know, normally I talk about boundaries, I talk about elitism, I talk about all kinds of stuff that is more adjacent to the cards that are now on the floor. But in this particular case, I think the Queen of Swords speaks to a technical mastery over self, right? We've got the King barging in, and the King and Queen are equal in power, right? I think we don't always think of that because we think of playing cards and the King's been higher in numbers and stuff, but, you know, they are equal rulership of something. And sometimes the Queen, quite frankly, needs to give the inner King a good clip round the ear. Or at least to correct him in a loving way and say, look, as the power over my own throne and sometimes the power behind yours, I want to step in and say, yes, logic, yes, swords energy, yes, boundaries and defensiveness sometimes, but how are we using this for the good? And it seems like this Queen is stepping into your King internally. This is all like an archetypal internal process, and saying, it's great that you were logical, boo-boo, but it's getting in the way of our lives. So I'm going to do the next few ceremonies. I'm going to address the people in the kingdom from now on, right? And that's because the Queen of Swords is the drawing the line in the sand girl. Any gender of energy, you could be any gender, but it's that sense of I'm going to step in now and categorise and delineate and also set apart. So this is, in a very literal sense, you just saying to your own brain, we're cutting that shit now. Thank you for it. It was useful. But in that very Marie Kondo kind of a way, we're going to appreciate its service and then send it to someone who can actually use it. You know what I mean? Or like say goodbye to it altogether. It's like, thank you for your service, but also trash bag. And then, interestingly, I'm going to take these together because they sort of fell together. We have a Knight of Cups reversed. We have an Ace of Pentacles reversed. And then we have an Ace of Wands upright. So, two interpretations. The first if you came for a romantic or sexual reading, just know that, like, with this spirit of the lovers and with this, actually, I want to say to both options for this, something that I forgot to say with the lovers card, which is that I've got it's a Fiona Apple rendition, but it's of an older song, and I forget the name of the woman who wrote it, but she was great. It's called Walk a Little Faster. The lyrics are something like, pretending that you're around each and every corner, I walk a little faster. It's like the excitement of anticipating who it is that you could run into, whether they're somebody that you know about or somebody that you don't and you just kind of dream about. And again, it doesn't have to be romantic. You could be asexual and this could apply. It's just sort of in reference to the reason we're getting back out there is so that we meet people and have fun, right? So what kinds of people could we maybe meet? So, in terms of those kinds of people, the first interpretation for those of you who had someone in mind or wanted a sex reading or a love reading is that with the Knight of Cups in reverse and the Ace of Pentacles in reverse, if you were expecting a grand romantic gesture and or offer of some kind of stability, I'm afraid that that's not very immediately on the cards. Doesn't mean it's ruled out altogether, but we're just looking near future. But what you might get is like a bit of a sexual offer. You might get a you up, you might get a just like a bit of flirtation, a bit of friendliness, or even like an opportunity for a creative collaboration, right? If someone's a bit too nervous to tell you how they feel in that respect, they might ask you to be in their band, they might ask you to go to a thing and sort of, not be their wingman because that sounds romantic, but, you know, be their sidekick for a particular event or whatever. And I think that is maybe working up towards the other stuff. But the reason it's not happening for you right now is that they're picking up on this vibe of nervousness from you. And believe you me, that can be even while you're sat at home. People can receive your energy of like, right, through the wires somehow. They can get the idea, they can receive the transmission that like you're not quite ready for any of that stuff. And it can make them nervous. So, I mean, I always say this with like twin flame or mirrored souls type stuff, if you saw that reading. The best thing you can do with a connection that you feel is like a soulmate or someone really, really close to you or very important is to work on yourself enough that none of the stuff that holds you back is going to be picked up on by them and kind of reflected back to you, right? We want to make sure that we're never projecting on other people, but we're also never giving off a vibe that they can then mirror, or an energy of nervousness that they can then like go, oh shit, why do I feel nervous? Maybe I shouldn't do this, maybe I should step back, right? And trust me when I say that cycle can go on for a very long time if you don't kind of get a hold of it, right? So this is your heads up if that's you. But with this Ace of Wands, it's still an ace, it's still a legitimate offer. It's not just like, if it is a sexual offer, it's not just like fuckboy energy, any gender of coming to you like, hey, some dick though, and that being it. It's more that like what feels accessible to them in this transference of nervousness that they're getting off you is to be a bit flirtatious and then just see, right? To test the waters in that particularly Ace of Wands way. Now, interpretation, if you weren't looking for a love reading, if you weren't looking for a sex reading, if none of that is particularly your thing, but you're still looking to get back out there, whether that's like conquering a bit of mild agoraphobia or full on like, you know, sort of repairing a social network where you were the hub and now you feel completely terrified by it. I feel like, again, it's like a won't have this, but will have this. So the non-sexual, non-romantic interpretation of these is you're not going to feel particularly spurred on imaginatively. You're not going to get into the room and feel excited at the possibilities at all times. You know, if it is just a trip to the bodega, you're not going to look at the aisles in wonder and then dance through the rain home and be super glad that you were out at all, right? There is still going to be it's like inviting you to have an expectation of slight hesitation and to be very compassionate with yourself. You might still feel a bit nervous, you might still feel a bit out of place, but the rationality of the Queen of Swords is going to come in and say, hey, That's an old pattern that we had. You remember double L's reading, right? We don't have to do this. It's going to be okay. Keep going, keep breathing, stay in the moment, right? And similarly, there's not going to be like a new event, a new proposition. If you are a big networker, or if it's like a networking event for work or something, there's not going to be like a crucial connection that's going to change your life on this night. But what will happen is that you will feel more confident. Ace of Wands energy is very like in the fiery vibe again. It's getting back to Leonic kind of energies, and to Aries impulsiveness, Sagittarian exploration, all these fiery qualities of like, no, I can be in this space and I'm feeling slightly better about it, and I'm feeling a little bit more like my old self again, right? And I think that's what it's going to promise you. And maybe even a bit of creative endeavour, although that is a very literal reading of that one. Or a bit of spiritual insight, which is the other interpretation there. But certainly it's like, you can do this, and it will be pleasurable. That's the thing. That's why you're being told about it in the pleasure pile. But it might just be a bit awkward in moments, and that's okay, right? You might be a bit awkward in moments, and it might be new territory for you, but that's okay. And I do think that you can extract all the luxury from the situation that you need to. Let's have just like a description of the scenario a bit for you, in a positive sense, just to finish off, because I feel like I'm not hyping this journey up for you, and it's like I say, even if you're only, hop into the laundrette or whatever, it's such a big deal for you. I feel like I need to say it's going to be all right. And the star, right? It had flipped over in the deck. It was flipped when I chucked all that on the floor. So if you're into your Robert Greene, you might want to look into the star and the fallen star archetypes within the art of seduction. Doesn't mean you have to be seducing someone. It's just a useful framework. But the star is somebody who used to be the hub. Like I say, you used to be the star of the show, possibly the centre of attention, or if not, just someone that sort of brought delight and vivaciousness and an infectious enthusiasm to other people when you were in social settings. This is something you feel you've lost. It is something you are about to regain. So the star is like the promise, like, yes, this will sort itself out. You'll be a star. The star is also about healing. So it's like, this will heal. This will, you will reset back to how you were, right? Pleasure is going to resume itself eventually. Four of Swords is about rest. So it's like, yes, you're going to do this. Yes, you're going to be the star. I have dead leg, just a moment. But you'll need to rest afterwards, right? It may even be physical rest, because I got like a physical sensation of dead leg and stuff. You may feel that it's all very exhausting, and you just need to chill out and kind of forgive yourself as well, because this reclining figure in the card, to me, always looks like a knight or a king. So it's like, again, King of Swords energy, but the chilled out version. I think we had a couple of knights, didn't we? Maybe, but we've got at least one anyway. And it's like, hiccups, confirmation. That kind of warrior, like, need to defend, must get through this, kind of knight vibe is coming to an end, and it's like, no, we can wind down now. We can put the swords on the wall, and we can actually just sleep or rest, or even if it is a party setting, maybe chill in the way that a lot of people at parties do. Not going to get more specific than that for YouTube, but there's a long thin object here, and somebody looking very spaced out, right? So that might be an option for you. I don't know. I'm not going to encourage it or discourage it, but for some of you, that's the case. And that will kind of mellow you out and get you back into this star situation where not even just that you remember who you are, but you just forget all the bullshit that veered you off from that, yeah? Because it's not a case of reclaiming or regaining or relearning. It's just a thing of getting rid of enough crap that you just settle back into it, because it is your normal position to be liked, right? And to feel part of the group, and to feel appreciated and happy, and to make other people happy as well. And I think you're going to settle back into it. So final thing for, that's interesting, Magician reversed, right? Final thing for the kind of situation that you're about to enter into. Again, party, date, course of studies, work thing, you name it. There's a lot of people I'm reading for, but Magician reversed is like I'm getting left-hand path. So for some of you, this is even like a return to group magical workings when you've only been doing stuff solo. And maybe you've gotten a bit more left hand since you left the group and you're nervous about that. But this is your indication that no, that's good. It's gonna enrich the perspectives of the people that you're coming back to, who perhaps didn't do the same kinds of things on their holidays. And the reference that's coming into my head is Ramsay Dukes, what I did on my holidays, right? So again, very literal with that, just for a small number, but I know there are practitioners who watch this. So for the rest of you, the Magician in reverse is like, you don't need all of the tools at your disposal. The Magician is like the person who channels from the heavens to the earth. He's the conductor. It's like electrical energy of sort of using one thing and somehow bringing it through the medium of self into being another thing. It's the alchemist. And he has on his table all of the different elements, the different suits that he can combine in a way that is very powerful. So to have him in reverse is like, you're still the conductor, you're still the networker, but you're not using the same toolkit, and it's possibly because you don't need it. It might be because you feel that things are missing. It might be that, like, you know, there's even like physical characteristics. You could have just physically changed or lost your voice or, you know, something like that. But there's something missing here that you used to work with in this kind of capacity that you don't feel is there anymore. And this card is very much saying, you don't fucking need it. We're beyond that now, right? So for some of you, if like maybe your body shape has changed and you don't feel as confident, it's like you don't need to look a certain way to have the confidence that is this star quality that is inherent to you. If it's more something like you've lost the practice and the social skills, or you feel like you can't speak around certain people, or like I say, you've literally lost your voice, anything like that, it's just like you don't have to have all of these elements in place to perform being you. You are you. You already have it. You had it all along. Oh, I hate when people say that, but in this case it's true, right? You always had the qualities that you're afraid you now lack because of this long period of outsiderness. And it's just the reassurance that you're going to heal. You're going to be, to the extent that you were before, you're going to be the kind of star of the show, maybe even outdoing where you were before. But you need to remember to rest, and you need to remember that you are still the person that you are without all of the accoutrements, affectations, Instagram following, or like extra shit that you can flex. Like, you don't need any of that. And you certainly don't need like set responses or to be practiced socially or whatever it is. You just need to get out there. That is the emergency thing. And you need to think about the potentials of what getting out there again could bring. Notice that's the one to do the big reflective beam of light at you. Receive this light, motherfucker. Receive the red-orange beam and get back out there and be who you are. Be who you am, right? Anyway. Okay, if you did find that helpful, Power One, please like, subscribe, ding the dong, thank you kindly. Share this with whoever it is that you think may find it helpful, whether or not they pick the same pile, because I am a relatively unknown YouTube channel and I would like to get a lot bigger. If you'd like to book with me privately, the link is down below, but no pressure. If you'd also like to donate, if you found it useful, there is an opportunity to do so. But again, it's down to you. Let's get to pile 2, shall we? Okay, synchronicity. Let's hope this one is a little bit chirpier, a little bit brighter. No shade on pile 1, but we did not get quite the reading that we expected when we started out. So, actually, I'm sure synchronicity will probably be an unpredictable reading because of the nature of it, but let's have a go, shall we? You know what? Speaking of unpredictability, I'm actually going to take a bathroom break. It's the first time I've had to do it in one of these readings. I will be right back. You won't feel the cut. Hello, if you're one of my beloved lingerers between piles, I'm sorry about that. And if not, pile 2, synchronicity. We just started shuffling. Definitely. Okay, so is this a study in current synchronicities? Is this an explanation of some stuff you've been seeing? Is this how to tap into a synchronicity's path? Do we need to explain what the term synchronicity means? I think we probably do. Okay, so for those of you who picked this pile who don't know the meaning of the term and you just found the pile appealing, I'm going to completely bastardize this for simplification purposes. But synchronicity is a series of meaningful coincidences that is communication from one's own psyche or from the divine, depending on what you believe, that gives you kind of feedback about your progress in a particular endeavour, or indeed leads you down a path that you might not have gone down before in order to bring you to your manifestation, your fortune, however it is that you prefer to think of events. So we're not talking about predisposition in the strictest deterministic sense. We're talking about giving the universe permission to lead you just for a moment in a kind of spontaneous way so that you get to an outcome which is not something you could have intentionally gone after because you're in collaboration at the moment, right, with fate. So for those of you who are interested in synchronicity, or you hear that and suddenly feel that actually, yes, it's been happening to you quite a bit, this is your pile. Well done. Okay, first 2 cards that we've got coming out are, I should take 3, it says. Okay. You look tasty. Hello. Okay, so we have the King of Swords. Oh, hello. We had 3. Clarified by the Wheel of Fortune and the 8 of Cups. Okay, so I'm going to take this as well because it said 3, but I got another one. Temperance. Right, so Temperance can be the angelic hand, the hand of the divine, the interference of the divine, if you like. So this is like just a confirmation, essentially, that if you've been having a lot of weird coincidences, a lot of events that follow on from each other in a way that makes you feel like, excuse me, hot water bottle, it's very cold, in a way that makes you feel like stuff is fated or like stuff sort of referencing itself back at you. If your life feels meta, that's a good explanation, a good description of the synchronicitous state, right? This is that divine hand. This is the angel of temperance, right? Okay, so King of Swords with Wheel of Fortune and 8 of Cups. I notice instantly with the Wheel of Fortune in this particular deck that we've got a Nancy. So I always think of Spider as the weaver of its own reality in the centre of the web of the universe, or indeed in the centre of the World Wide Web, if that's the place that you are currently manifesting. I know it's an old term, whatever, I like it, alright? If you haven't noticed, a bit retro around here. But yeah, it's kind of, I think of Anansi to a lesser extent, but Spider as the weaver of fate, right? The different threads of possibility coming out from this central figure who will trap manifestations in its web and just wait on them, right? So the sense of passivity in your particular synchronistic journey, it's like you're not going after a bunch of mad stuff. You're not like traveling from country to country going, oh, I'm following my instinct on this thing, like eat, pray, love, vomit style, right? It's much more of a sense of I'm going about my everyday life, or I'm staying pretty where I am and things are still flowing to me. I'm still this spider in the centre of the web. If you've been seeing spiders, by the way, probably an indication that you're quite powerful in terms of this skill, whether or not you're arachnophobic. There is an excellent Jordana Van video, which I'm always linking, so you could probably find it in any number of the Marseille mini link drop-down things. But it's about spider as like a totem or a spirit guide. Doesn't involve a load of pictures of spiders in the video, so safe to view. But it just sort of describes how spider is really about bringing in the kind of reality that you want. So even before we get to what the cards are, already I'm seeing you in the middle of your web, like trapping in the things which you desire, which is a great start with synchronicity, right? Okay, so King of Swords. There's an element of logic coming into this idea of fate with the Wheel of Fortune, or you spinning your own fate in this tricksterish way, and the trickster is orange, and we're in red-orange, so well done you, you're on vibe, right? But I'm noticing that this kind of figure of intellect and this using of the mind to maybe do scripting, manifestations, maybe even affirmations, because it's like it's a silent figure, but it's holding the sword, which is speech, but it's watching the Eight of Cups. So a big part of you beginning on this journey of embracing synchronicity and drawing things in quite a passive way toward yourself was leaving an old circumstance that was emotionally unfulfilling. For many of you, that's a relationship. Let's have a look. 10 of Coins in reverse. So this is the ending of a personal legacy. Now, that may mean that some of you are in a particular career and you just suddenly realise that it wasn't, that it was perhaps monetarily beneficial and a good legacy and all of that stuff, but it wasn't spiritually beneficial and it wasn't actually building you up to being the person that you want to be. So you walked and everyone around you went, that person is mad. What the hell? For others of you, this is like a marriage or an extremely long-term partnership or kind of familial situation. Please excuse me. But it's just the ending of something that could have been very big. It could have been the be-all and end-all for you. I'm hearing some of you have switched degrees as well, like changed majors or just stopped your degree altogether. Pile 1, if you've like kept on because you were in the stuff about being delayed because of the pandemic and feeling nervous about returning to normal life, like good luck with that over the next few astrological years, but you know what I mean. It may be that you've also kind of stopped your studies or you've deferred somehow or switched things up somehow, and that's the end of this 10 of Coins, because it's like the feeling is like there was a thing that was all planned out. You didn't even just have a 5-year plan. It was like, I do this and then I do this and then I end up in this place with this person, and it's all kind of, you know, organised until I'm 80 odd. And if I have viewers over that age, then firstly, thank you for being here and say hello. But also it's like it's still applicable right into the far future, right? Or maybe it was that your particular 10 of Coins, if you are in later life, was about your legacy to other people, because this is a very familial depiction of the card in particular, less emphasis on money, more on family. So it was like whatever actions you were taking were going to leave the next few generations in good stead, but now you're going, yeah, that doesn't work for me though, I'm not going to do it. And it's not in a selfish way, it's not doing wrong by those people, it's just you recognising that whatever this was, there was an inconsistency between your core value system and it, and therefore if you'd have carried on with it, you wouldn't have been able to offer the world the full fruition of your particular influence upon it anyway. You wouldn't have been giving your best version of you, your fullest scope of interests, your happiest daily self to everybody around you. And it became clear that it was kind of more important in some ways to just change tack completely, even if that means that you don't know what you were changing to. I get the sense that you ended something that you were like, look, it doesn't even matter what my next step is, but this whole big long plan that I had worked out forever, not working for me anymore, so let's just not do it, right? So what was the immediate result of this 10 of Coins in terms of this synchronicitous journey? Can you tell us anything about like what happened straight after that? Because I do feel this is a past event. Okay, so we've got Knight of Coins. So maybe that was my microphone. Speech has left you. That may be literal in some senses. There may have been some kind of event where it was like, I'm not going to speak about this because I'm just going to get shit for it. But yeah, sorry about that. If you heard any sound disturbance, hopefully it's still recording fine. We'll check later. But yeah, Knight of Coins can be somebody who is, it's Knight of Pentacles, so it's very slow-paced movement. So either it was that you were working towards something so gradually that you weren't seeing results and you're like, fuck it. Or going away from this particular thing means that you know that it's going to be a slow journey from now. But there's a sense of of stepping back into steadiness, right? The knights should be creatures of momentum, creatures of speed. They should indicate something moving along in dazzling fashion, ready to sort of keep the story going. And instead you've got the energy that is like very sort of Capricorn, very like steady, and I will climb this mountain step by step, and I will take a pause when I need it, thank you. And that kind of energy can be very disappointing to the people around you, but it can be exactly what you need. It you know, if you haven't fully walked away, there's certainly a sense of like taking a sabbatical or just stepping back in some fashion to reevaluate things in a way that appears to everybody else as slow progress, right? It's, I'm not going to rush into this because there's something off about the vibe. I'm going to take this Knight of Pentacles tactic and I'm going to work on things really steadily. And I do feel, because we've got a cow on here, and that is like, well, it's one of the most sacred animals in the world if you're not eating beef burgers every 5 seconds. But also it's a particular animal that's been vibing to me recently. So I do think that this is a part of the sacred path. There's also a reference with this being a bull. Well, there's two, right? There's the fact that we're in, as I said, I think in pile 1. Yeah, because you're only pile 2. Man, I feel like I've been here ages. There's the sense that like we're in red-orange, which for me in the astrological colour wheel comes after Aries, so that would be the Taurian element, so it would be a bull, right? So Taurian, Venusian kind of energy may be resonating at the moment, or you may have aspects in Taurus that are transiting, or interesting stuff going on between your big 3 with Taurus, I don't know. The other thing that I think of when I see the bull, and it's not this particular tale, but this deck is folklore, so it naturally makes me think of it, is that the original version of Cinderella in Scotland had the fairy godmother figure as a red-eared bull that granted wishes. I think the mother of the person died at the beginning of the tale, and the red-eared bull would visit the gravesite, and it was like the spirit of the passed on parent, sort of giving the Cinderella story to this person sat by the graveside. And the indication that this creature was like of Fae or like a crossroads figure was that they had these red ears, right? My video file size is about to reach maximum. 2 seconds. All right, pile 2, we are back in business. Gonna put these on again. Did have to redo the setup, so I apologise if it's ever so slightly different. And I had a bit of a food break, so if any of you are possibly under-eating because of everything that's been going on, please pause me and get a quick snack, yeah? I feel like the malfunction, well, firstly I should say that I've been saying since well before 2020 on here that everything that happens in a reading is kind of open for interpretation. So I think that having no space left because I hadn't realised that some of the things I'd intended to remove hadn't been fully removed is a thing. So if you're feeling like there's not enough manoeuvrability at the moment, then check the kinds of circumstances, influences and mental patterns that you thought that you were rid of, having made this decision to kind of drop this 10 of coins situation and surrender into a more synchronistic flow. Because I suspect that there's some stuff lingering from your past that is not yet dealt with, and that's a message that's coming through, and it's why I had to take a good hour restarting and going through files and things. So I do apologise for the slight break, but we've got a brand new hot water bottle. We're all set up again. Let's continue with the reading. Now, where were we? This Knight of Coins, I was talking about Cinderella and the red-eared bull. The extra thing that I was meant to say kind of before the camera started doing its thing is that for those of you who have perhaps a parent that's passed on, and I know that's not going to cover everybody, but if you do, And you've just begun this new journey of giving up what it was that you thought would be your particular legacy, perhaps even something heavily influenced by your parentage. I suspect that they are your red-eared bull. They are your fairy godmother or godfather, and kind of heavily involved in this synchronistic process. Excuse me if you can hear the hot water bottle moving around. I'm filming this mid-November. Depending on when you're seeing it, that may be relevant, but my flat is freezing right now and I'm about to move and I'm very glad. So, right, now that that's all said and we've covered the kind of general meaning of the Knight of Coins, we know that we're in the centre of our Wheel of Fortune. We know that we're the spider kind of manifesting through our web. We know that we've given up something big, perhaps even a legacy path, or something that was planned out many years in advance, so as to pursue something a little bit more, I don't want to say impulsive, but in line with our spiritual values, values being a Taurian subject, and we have this Taurus card and we're in the Taurus colour. So let's have a look at any other information that we can kind of glean from all of this. Now that we've given up whatever this 10 of coins in reverse was, what's it looking like? What's the next step? And actually, is there any more information about that interruption that we had? Because I feel like interruptions are a theme with this group. I'm hearing that they are, and I want to just explore that. Because it's not your first one. I don't know whether any of you stayed on yikes, I can't speak, stayed on from pile 1, but I kind of started shuffling your cards and then stopped and then started again, and then I started filming for you and then stopped and started again. So let's look at that first, actually. So on these interruptions, we've got the Magician reversed, which oh, I thought it was Sleeping Beauty in this deck, but it's not actually, so never mind with that. The Magician reversed, and then we have the Ace of Cups reversed. So, interesting. Something about interruptions is to do with, now how do I want to say this? Okay, the interruptions are a reference to you interrupting the cycle that you did by leaving the circumstances that you were in. I get the sense from the Ace of Cups in reverse that this is something you were very passionate about, whether that's a particular relationship, which would be a very literal Ace of Cups interpretation, or whether it's a career in a field where there is still a lot of love from you, there is still a lot of engagement with it, but it just wasn't doable in the sort of way that you were trying to tackle it before. And the love of it is contrary to this Magician reversed, which in this particular deck, what I'm getting from it is abuse or misuse of power. So for many of you, this is a professional environment where either you were encouraged to abuse your position or sort of use the job to do things that you didn't consider to be morally kosher. Or you saw that kind of thing happening around you and it started to stress you out to the extent that the love for the thing couldn't outweigh the need to leave it in order to remain in alignment with your values. Now, if it's something more minor and it's just like a long-term plan that you had for yourself, I would say again, it's like there was some sort of corruption of the love you originally had for it. So the Ace of Cups was very much there, but the cup was no longer being offered. It's like there was suddenly an idea that the way of going about the thing was flying in the face of the original purpose behind it in the first place. So, because again, we've got this reference to legacy here, and we've got this card here which was nudging me towards parentage. Even if the parents who've passed on doesn't apply to you, we've got all of these ideas about leaving behind something for the next generation, or leaving something to a person, or kind of being an example for the next set, if that makes any sense. And I feel like whatever that goal or plan or even relationship was meant to do in terms of passing on some of your strengths to somebody else, which would be the magician upright, that has been subverted, or what's the word? The word that's coming into my head is it's sacrilegious. So that, again, it won't resonate for everybody, but there was something about the position that you were put in that encouraged you to do something sacrilegious or taboo, or at least going against your values. And I suppose if you're not religiously identified, or if you're more spiritual, or sacrilegious just doesn't resonate with you because you don't have a concept of things like sin, then sacrilegious is a good sort of metaphor word for this is an exact refutation of my system of values. It is the most accurate subversion of everything I came here to do, if that makes sense. I hope this is all coming together for you. Please let me know in the comments like what particular scenario that you were in, because I do find this very interesting. But in either case, I suspect that there was a realm within you had a lot of passion for something, you had a lot of love for something, a lot of skill to give it, because the magician is about having tools at your disposal as well and being a correct channel for a certain kind of energy. But then you left the situation because it wasn't in alignment with your values, and that misalignment felt a little abrasive, a little bit abject. It felt like a direct sabotage of who it is to be you. And I think that you stepping into that knowledge has solidified who you were and who you are, more than just surrender to synchronicity without even getting into that original situation could have done. It's almost like if it was a job, you were better trying to do the job and then coming out of it than you would have been realising that it wasn't for you in the first place and just never pursuing it. Or if it was a relationship, I don't want to use the K word that everybody appropriates from another culture, but you know, it was not meant to be the core relationship or the key relationship in your entire life. And instead, without the learning experience of it, I don't think you would have been in a position to receive from the universe in quite as joyful and red-orange style a way as you are now, with a kind of spirit of fun and pleasure and playfulness, which is a very Anansi quality, you know, separate from Spider. Anansi is a teller of stories and a joker, and all of his kind of lessons are imparted in a very playful, almost silly sometimes way. So there is that sense of like, you couldn't get back to silliness and playfulness and joy without first taking on something which was extremely long term and then surrendering it and going back on it completely. Perhaps, as I say, with the guidance of a parent on the other side, or at least with the idea of, if I had a fairy godmother, if I had a fairy godfather, what might they say about the position that I've put myself or found myself in? So, moving on to kind of what's next with this. We've got a 9 of coins in reverse, which is interesting. I love that card, the watermelon man. It's just so beautiful. It looks like someone I know, actually. Really cool. I just love this deck, man. And the 3 of coins in reverse as well. Lots of mask wearing here as well. So this may speak if there was an injustice in a particular career path, or a disingenuous relationship perhaps, or something like that. The mask wearing in this card, as it is in the upright, may speak to that. It may sort of be that 7 of swordsy kind of an energy. So the next step really is kind of an odd one, because 9 of coins in the upright, with the watermelon man as well, would be someone who's doing very well by themselves, completely on their own, particularly doing very financially well, someone who's living a very luxurious life. You may have been in my soft life pile last week, or last colour. But it's a very solo energy, right? And my feeling with this, in part because of who this reminds me of and because of my personal associations with watermelon as a colour and as a food, is that, hi by the way if you're watching, is that this person in reversal, it's like you can have the abundance and the planning that you were going for and still absolutely surrender to this kind of more spiritual existence. But you might not be doing it alone, and that's kind of what you're bringing in. Now, if you were partnered up before this choice was made, then this obviously isn't for you, but I am getting a section of guidance for some of you that is, you had to try this and then stop it and realise the importance of your own well-being and of doing things in your particular way with your value system, in order to invite in the fact that you don't have to go it alone and you don't have to be constantly self-reliant. Now, I can't remember which reading it was, but I feel like either one of my self-concepts or one of my Marseille minis covered this fear of self-reliance as like a... There was somebody who came through in the reading who'd been very strong for a very long time, and there was almost a sense of despair of, I can handle everything by myself, but fuck do I want to ask someone to help, right? It was this thing of somebody who's very capable of going it alone, and, you know, as with this 9 of coins, could be very abundant in doing so in a variety of different areas, by the way, not just money, but who almost resented having to do it alone every time. And in your particular case, I feel that this is partly because of a backlash, that this was a very long-term step for you, that this was a very long plan, that it had maybe dependents involved, or at least other people who would have been counting on your skill set within a specific framework, and that when you chose to jump ship from this in whatever way, it would have pissed people off, I think. And that's meaning that in the immediate future, you're having to go it alone a bit. You're kind of out there on your own, feeling like you're pulling the threads of things together. Not in a way that describes discomfort, because all of this energy over here is very joyful and playful and quite content, to be honest. But even if you feel relieved, I feel that the pressure from other people is almost chipping away at the relief you feel, right? It's the expectations of others almost prohibit you from being relaxed about it, even though you know on a more spiritual level that you've done exactly the right thing and that opportunity will flow to you as a result. Because if you'd have gone further down that path, as discussed, it wouldn't have been the right road and it would have all sort of crashed and burned anyway, right? But yeah, that reaction, the difference between the reaction of the people around you to your decision based on their values about safety and abundance and maybe even like codependence and interdependence and stuff like that, versus your newfound feeling of freedom, I want to say, from having left an aspect of yourself in the past. They're rubbing up against each other in a way that is not ideal in the future. And this is like saying to me, you're not going to have to cope with that solo. So for those who are looking for a relationship, that is absolutely coming in the near future, by way of you following the synchronistic train. So if you feel drawn to go in a certain store as you pass it, or you feel like it's the night to watch a particular movie, or to call someone you haven't called in, you know, months, or just to do something kind of that feels impulsive and you're not really sure why you're doing it, but you're sure it will make sense one day, do it. Because that's going to step you onto this synchronistic chain of events that's going to bring you to, in some cases, a partner, in other cases, a kind of friendly collaborator. So if this was a career thing, it might be that you're meeting somebody that you can do something similar with, but in a different way and without the corruption added. If it's that you are happily partnered up and it's not a job thing or anything, but, you know, you could just use some moral support having left a particular cultural or traditional framework, or having just thrown your goals into the sea, right? That's fine too. And all this is indicating is that somewhere along your journey, you're going to bump into somebody in the street or something that is going to be a new bestie to help you along with this path and to affirm and confirm to you that you did indeed make the right choice. With the 3 of coins in reverse, I think this is a reference to... It's hard because you're getting like, I'm going to collaborate with a new person, I'm not going to do this alone. But in the same column, you're getting, I'm no longer going to collaborate. And I think that's in reference to whoever it was in your past that approved of the decision to do what you were originally doing, and perhaps even coerced you a little bit into going further with it than you would have liked, or thought it was a better idea for you than you ended up feeling it was. Any kind of dissenting voices from the past, even if that's a thing like people around you being protective and worrying about your security and saying, hey, you know, the safer option of these things is always going to be to do that thing that you've been hating to do. I think you're going to listen less to them. I think that's what this is, because it's a break in collaboration. And as I say, we're getting the mask wearers, and then we're getting this very joyful childlike figure in the middle, sort of dancing by herself. As I said, which is your initial energy. Before you meet people that you're going to collaborate further with, you will be in the upright 9 of coins, which is solo, right? Again, with the Robin reference from last week, dancing on my own, right? You will be dancing on your own in the immediate future, and you're going to feel better for it, because you can confirm your own experiences with synchronistic feedback and with strings of coincidences from the universe. Yes, some people read them as confirmation bias, but just see them as psychological tools if that's the case. But, you know, you're going to get this feedback that's going to make you feel good about what it is that you've been doing. And I think that the interruption in that feedback would possibly come from people who are in full support of you, but who wanted for you the life that you've just given up. So they're kind of going to be less involved at this point. And as a result, you are going to be in the near future doing it on your own, and in, you know, probably just a few days to a few weeks, collaborating with somebody maybe new to your life, or maybe just that you haven't seen in a while, who's going to be like, no, you did exactly the right thing, right? Okay, so, and after that, let's have any more information that you've got. You're not being very clear here, guys. Come on. I know we've had a little break. I need 2 cards, preferably coherent with each other, about what's happening next. Thank you. And a clarifier for that one. Is it this guy? Yes. Just needed to be the other way up, apparently. Right, so then we have the 10 of Wands reversed. So this is the easing of burden. I think this is like the death tree, if I'm remembering rightly, as well. So this is the kind of the grief that you had about the past situation is going to come to an end. I think if you were mourning any part of the life that you could have had in any way, and I don't sense you really dwelling on it, but you know, if there was any like little niggling doubt, I think that's going to be gone. And certainly you're laying your burdens down. The 10 of Wands, I always think of the traditional Smith-Waite interpretation of the guy carrying all the sticks, right? Or the Led Zeppelin album, if you prefer. But yeah, you're just going to be kind of laying down all your sticks, laying the load down, getting rid of all the stuff that was burdening you before. And also, again, pile 3, interruptions and interferences. I just had an unwanted app pop up on my phone, which is also my camera, and then had my mic get tangled in me trying to correct it. So yeah, you're laying down the burdens that you used to have. You're realising how many problems came from the old situation that you were in. The longer you are out of it, how many things are connected to it, the longer you kind of leave those things in the past, whether that be a job, a group of people, a relationship that you've come out of, whatever it is. You're realising how complex it was. But I feel, again, with the interruptions, right? So it's almost like the positive way that the universe is giving you feedback at the moment might feel very negative, and it might be that it's interrupting what you think is your next step. I get the feeling overall from this reading, and also from the many sort of breaks in it that we've had, that the process of you stepping away from what was is going to be bigger for you than what you think is next, which might not be what is next, right? I can tell you for sure you're going to meet somebody who's going to help you out, but beyond that, I don't necessarily think that your idea of the future is exactly how the future's going to go. And part of the lesson, indeed, of having to walk away from this very extensive plan is understanding that, what's that saying? Something about we make plans and life laughs, right? It's, you can't really make a plan and be on a spiritual journey without having some sort of room in the plan for the universe to just come in and explode everything and put you on a completely different path if it wants to, right? Which is very irritating to learn, I know. And believe me, I've had direct experience of this and being completely derailed from both a degree and then a career in order to do this and be here with you now. Hi. And that's been through all kinds of things, health issues, financial stuff, that have all kind of had me getting a very good idea of what it is that I thought I should be doing. I'm very confident in that idea, and then suddenly exploded things. I always use the analogy in terms of making plans of the narrator from Fight Club when he returns home and sees his stuff sailing out of the condo on fire. And it's like a good metaphor for the Tower card, but it's also a good way of being like, look, the events of the film need to happen. Therefore, this stuff has to explode on you. You can't go back to your cozy IKEA condo and live the life that you were living and still develop as a character, right? And that's a very Anansi kind of a perspective. It's like what would be best for your story, not what feels best for you right now. So you've done the right thing by abandoning former values, but I get the feeling that your future values actually are fairly up in the air, and that the more important thing was to unburden yourself of these 10 wands or kind of infinite little niggles about the situation that you were in previously. So clarifying that, we have the 8 of Swords with donkey skin, right? Might be relevant for those of you who do know the tale or who wish to read it, but 8 of Swords is about a person feeling trapped by their own intellectual defences, inhibitions, by the idea of who it is that they're meant to be versus who they are. So again, like, you might be wearing the donkey skin of your old identity a bit and feeling a bit like, well, I've made this movement forward and I'm feeling happy now, but like, what next? Am I kind of jailed into wherever I've got myself? And the answer really is no. It's you don't need to worry. And again, I don't think these feelings are particularly strong in you. I think, generally speaking, you're this watermelon guy feeling great about the future, feeling a lot of childlike energy coming through, actually, a lot of just satisfaction in the simple things again, after perhaps a long period of not feeling that. But if there was any anxiety about sort of trapping yourself as you're moving forward, or whether you psyched yourself out about the whole thing and actually it wasn't right to leave, or whether so-and-so is right about it and you should collaborate with them. No, there's no question of it. This reading is absolutely confirmation in your stream of synchronicities, hi, I'm part of it, that this is not a bad decision. It's going to leave you unburdened. It's going to leave you feeling fancy-free and free for anything fancy. And that when the future comes, you will know what to do, because 8 of Swords is sometimes about indecision as well, and sort of trapping yourself in a state of rumination. Again, for those who came from Pile 1, you'll relate. But I think that that's not going to be the case. I think this whole thing is like, you trusted yourself enough to step away. Now trust us to catch you, right? Whatever you believe us is. The universe, God, spirits, angels, whatever your particular paradigm, I'm not really fussed. I just know that I work with my version of whatever that is in order to give you the messages. So, it's all kind of different languages for one and the same energy as far as I see it. So just trust that if you can listen to me and accept what I'm saying and say, hey, yeah, that resonates, this happened, you're right about that thing, to the extent that that is also true, you're going to be taken care of, you're going to be looked after, the next step will be clear to you, right? You wouldn't be stumbling on this reading somehow, or even subscribe to it, if you weren't meant to kind of know that you're going to be okay, is my sense. So the next ones coming out together are, we have the Sun and the Four of Coins. So the Sun, which I believe is that Horus? Would it be Horus? I would think it'd be Ra if it was the Sun, but it looks like Horus. Anyway, those of you with this deck, you can double check, or I'll put it in the comments if I remember. And the Four of Coins, the Eagle. So there's a Scorpionic influence here. Perhaps you made the transition away from this thing during Scorpio season if you're watching at the time of upload. So that would have been sort of October-ish, October-November time, around Halloween. But the Eagle as well is about having the long view of things. It's about being high enough above the situation that you can see far into the future and realise, you know what, that stuff back there, that was small fry bullshit. It's not really much to do with your purpose. You're on the right path. It's all fine. Now, the Sun in any tarot deck is pretty much the happiest card you can get, and you don't have it reversed, so there's no delay in that happiness or anything like that. This is just saying that the outcome of this is all going to be fantastic. I also feel like, yeah, there was something, right, so when I had to break earlier in order to reset the camera, make sure that there'd be enough space for you guys, all that good stuff, I was listening to a podcast and making myself a cuppa, etc., while some stuff uploaded, downloaded, etc. Excuse me, hiccups. Just means I'm doing my job. And I was thinking about circadian rhythms, and I got the sense, or I got a message, should I say, that whatever it is that you stepped away from has put you in a different sleep pattern. That may have been that you were working a 9 to 5 and now you're suddenly able to stay up late at night because you're not doing any more. Or it may be the other way, where you were doing shift work or something, or you just had a relationship that was particularly demanding later in the evening, or whatever it is, right? But your schedule as a person has shifted slightly from what it was. Now, with the Sun card coming up, whether or not you are now a night owl because you can be, if that makes sense, which is what I was getting when I was stood over there. Sorry, I'm pointing over there as if you know my flat, but I was stood over there thinking about this and sort of receiving. Whether or not you're now a night owl, and I don't know which way round it's going to work, I just know that because I'm reading generally, for most of you, time has been disrupted slightly by whatever decision has been made. But if you do get any free time in the sunlight, even if you're, like me, Northern Hemispheric, and there's not much of it at the moment, I think spending time in the sun, kind of waiting for stuff to happen, or going on a bit of a magical derive, or following nudges from the universe, or following hunches about what it is that you could do that day for fun, or stuff like that under the sunlight, is going to be the next method of propulsion into the next phase, right? So as I was speaking about before our interruption, you're going to be doing something, checking something out, meeting up with someone, something like that, that's going to kind of spark off a chain of events that takes you to somewhere entirely unexpected, that frankly it's not your job to expect, because it's more of a fate thing, right, or a universal thing. If you don't like fate, if that feels very deterministic, just see it as a road has been made available to you that you can go down or not go down based on your will, but the kind of opening to the road wasn't visible on the path you were on because you were stood behind a car, right? So it's like you've just seen the opportunity to go for something else. It doesn't mean that you're predetermined in everything you do. I don't believe that, by the way. And if you're hearing any of the bullshit going around YouTube at the moment from law of attraction people or assumption people about how tarot and astrology are all deterministic and it's just people telling you what's about to happen and ruining your manifestation, I think that's absolute horseshit. I think both of those methods of divination are in fact a tool to get to know yourself and to get to know the current present circumstances of the situation so that you can hone your manifestations and ask for better and do better and be better people, which is something that culture often misses out on. Regardless of all of that, I'm not saying that your fate is fixed. When I talk about synchronicity, I'm saying that there is a point at which you can step on a ride and then step off it again, but that wouldn't have been something that's passing you. in your old mode of being, right? So you can get off at any time. You don't have to follow this to its conclusion. You will kind of be just shown what you need to know wherever you're going, depending on how much you cooperate with universal nudges, I guess. But that doesn't mean that everything is planned out for you. And I think that's important to stress for your reading in particular, because it feels like half the reason you left what you left is that everything seemed planned out, and that was something that rubbed you up the wrong way. You're perhaps very strong Uranian personality, you know, plenty of Aquarius and stuff. High Aquarius rising. Like, it rubs me up the wrong way sometimes too, right? Particularly if anyone tells me what to wear or kind of where to be when and no. And it might be the same for you, that you don't necessarily want to know the future or feel that the future is already plotted. And I'm not saying, in saying like go and do these things and do them in the sunshine and something weird will happen, I'm not saying that that weird thing will happen and carry you away from yourself or carry you down a path which is not 100% consenting or is deterministic. I'm just saying that it will open up opportunities to you so that you can choose in a more accurate way. If any of you have played Bandersnatch, right, it sounds like a strange example, but it's a really good analogy for synchronistic choice, because the further you are into Bandersnatch choices, the more you know about the outcomes so far in the game, and the better that you can actually engineer, no, I'm going to go for a completely different thing. So even though the narrative loops back on itself in some places, and you'll know from playing it what those choices were, there is like a method that you can take to sort of do it all. And it's not deterministic, it's still based on your choices each time. But from what your previous choices were, you have more of an idea and more of an idea. And before you know it, you've gone through all the loops that you can do, and you're kind of going out on one of the alternate endings and exploring them each in sequence, right? So this is what I love about Bandersnatch. It's also what I love about synchronistic flow. You don't have to surrender your personality up entirely to the divine, but you also don't have to make your decisions with 1000% logic for fear that you get swept away on a tide that you can't control, right? It's a nice happy balance of, I'm vibing with this thing, so I'm going to try it, and then by coincidence or synchronicity, that thing takes you to a person or a job or a country or whatever it is that you think, you know, I'm really glad that I went on that day and, I don't know, watched a certain movie or whatever it is. Clicked on a tarot reading. Hi. Okay, so we're going to get two last ones because this is going on a little while, and I think you're here with my point. But is it this way or this way? That's interesting that it came up like that. I don't know whether you can see, but these cards kind of went back to back with each other, right? It turns out to be this one, but they don't normally self-select in that fashion. So I think there's something about yourself that you're turning on its head during this process. And I don't just mean you're leaving this thing. I mean, there's something about your identity that you're changing as well. Obviously, that can be quite shallow stuff, or it can be quite big stuff. You do you, let me know. But for that to come out the way that it did, it's like, do I want to be this person? Do I want to be this person? And there's almost a split down the middle and a split-second decision, and you're like, this one, and I'm sticking with it for the rest of my life because it's the correct decision. So good for you. Okay, so we've got Five of Swords reversed. That's interesting. And on this one, it's depicting Anubis and I believe it's Isis crying over the death of Osiris. Actually, that may be Osiris, now I think about it. Who knows? I've completely lost my ability to recognise the Egyptian gods anymore, which is shameful because as a child I was absolutely obsessed. That was my particular pantheon growing up. But yeah, anyway, so we've got... The first thing I want to say is we've got a mother crying over her son. So if you're male identified, and part of this like mask-wearing person advising you on the best thing to do is a maternal figure, just know that, like, even if they turn on the tears, you've still done the right thing. That's what I want to say. But in a broader way, this is about, she's crying at the death of something, but the whole thing is a rebirth. And the Five of Swords is about whether you won or lost a thing, right? It's about taking defeat and victory equally well and acting with integrity. So for some of you, actually, this is about kind of not gloating. If people did disagree with you and the path that you're moving down does seem to be very fortuitous and opportunities are just bumping into you in the street as a result of what you've done, there's almost an advice like not to show off too much about that to people who may find it hurtful that you make decisions in a different way or from a different value system than what they do. But there's also a sense that, like, she's crying over spilt milk a bit. Fantastic Jellyfish album, that may resonate for some. If you're interested in the words jellyfish, spilt milk, there may be something in there. I don't know, it was just a thing. Yeah, she's crying over spilt milk. She's crying over the death of her son, but she doesn't know that her son will be reborn, being the sun god, in a kind of even more triumphant way, and it's all going to turn out absolutely gravy. So there is a thing in this as well of, like, not crying over the past, not regretting the decisions you've made, not looking back. This could almost be an Orpheus and Eurydice card in that sense. Don't look back at your former decisions with any kind of disdain. And that includes the choice that you originally made before you left it, by the way, because that was there to serve a particular purpose as well. I feel like it's this one, but I feel like this one underneath it wants to clarify. And these are your last two. So we've got the Page of Wands in reverse. The fly swatting guy. I will murder his name if I try and pronounce it. If I remember in the edit, I will put it on the screen, but it's a wonderful story. But that is in reverse, and it's clarified by the Seven of Cups in reverse. Right, okay, so you're not going to be overwhelmed by choices. Now, that doesn't sound like a positive thing for me to be saying, but I think in your case, you kind of know that it's a good thing. I think that in the past, if this is a love reading, you could have had your pick of options in the past, to the extent that you never really said no to anybody, to the extent that you had a lot of hangers-on who weren't necessarily clear about how you felt, because you always felt that you didn't necessarily want to close yourself off from opportunity when you didn't know what the future held. And I think over time, with it being a 7, that became a burden on you. I'm not necessarily getting that you're a player or anything like that, but it's just that you are potentially being pursued by a lot of different people and you had a lot of dreams that could have come to fruition that were happening simultaneously, but the simultaneous nature of them became a burden. It's this Ten of Wands. It became too much to sort of organise and handle without hurting anybody's feelings. And with this kind of fly swatter page over here, I always think in this story of, like, one of my personal correspondences is that whenever there is not so great energy coming into my field, or any form of psychic attack or draining people around me, or I'm about to have a conversation with somebody that is going to be more depleting of my energy than I've anticipated, I will see flies, or I will see a fly on something if it's not the season for fruit flies. It will just be a thing where they're sort of going past my face, or one time it was like I bought a pair of boots and the logo on the box was of a giant blue bottle, and then I had a conversation with someone later that was like hideously draining. So it's those sorts of things. But anyway, the flies are, for me, a draining of energy, and therefore carrying around a sacred fly swatter, as this child is jubilantly doing in the story, is representative of a kind of exorcism. So you may want to stick around, by the way, when we do the blue light version of this reading. Subscribe if you do. But there is definitely a need to kind of get rid of any not so great residual connective energy. And I think that if this is in conjunction with this slimming down of choices, this 7 of Cups in reverse in a good aspect, this may mean that you had soul ties to previous sexual connections. If you know what that is, it could mean that you were just intellectually involved with several people at the same time and you found it a burden to manage simultaneous friendships and stuff. Honestly, if you are my watermelon friend watching this, a lot of this is hitting home, right? I'm surprised how much of this correlates to your life, my dude. But anyway, yeah, there's just an overburden of interaction happening with a figure who is newly able to kind of go, that's not relevant right now. Not to say that you're swatting away people or that you're being impolite or disingenuous or rude or any of those things. It's just to say that in some way, as all of this unfolds in the mysterious fashion that it's going to, these connections will drop off as well. Whether that's through you encouraging that process or not. I get the feeling that the windows of opportunity will gradually close down and that actually you will breathe a sigh of relief with this. And that might be what ushers in kind of the company that you're inviting, as formerly mentioned. Now, if none of that applies to relationships, there is a sense that you are, with the Page of Wands, you're kind of embarking on new creative activity, if not sexual activity, and that is going to close down some of the dreams you had for yourself before this even began, when you were sort of over here with this in the upright, in a position of relative ignorance about what you wanted, where you were going, just accepting the long-term plan for yourself without really examining what the consequences would be. Those dreams obviously are outgrown now, they're no longer appropriate, and I think that they will shut down with the realisation that they're not appropriate for you. Again, it's this sense of you may not know who you're becoming. You may not know what your future replacement dreams are, or your kind of replacement clique, if it's that kind of a thing. But I think that you know that when these things cross themselves out around you, it's not a bad thing. I think you sense that the elimination of some possibilities is in itself a form of liberating minimalism. It's the kind of, you're getting down to like a very essentialist principle for your life of like, I don't know what I do need, but I know what I don't need. It's like a reverse KonMari process where you're going, okay, this doesn't spark joy, bye. I don't know what does, but I guess what I'm left with, right? Or what comes out of what I'm left with. Because this whole journey is going to be flowering out of the clean slate that you've made for yourself, as opposed to whooshing in on the four winds from some magical outer other while you're cluttered, right? It's, again, I've said this in another reading at another time, but it reminds me of the sequence in Labyrinth with the junk lady, where she's going through all of Sarah's bears and books and lipsticks and all of this and saying, oh, you need to take this with you, don't you love this? And oh, look at this. And Sarah is realising that she doesn't really know much about herself except that the mission to save her brother is paramount. And she looks at all of the belongings that she used to treasure and says something like, it's all junk, and then just leaves, right? And that fairy, bearing in mind that fairies are always a bit tricky, was there to distract her from the central mission. She was there to say, oh, look at this shiny thing from your past. Look at this thing that could be really cool. Look at this person that's still a potential offering, you know? All these kinds of things. And really what Sarah does in that scene is swat that away very happily and go down the path, which arguably in that film is like a spiritual empowerment path, to following the correct way to go to the centre of the labyrinth, and eventually being able to tell Jareth, you have no power over me, and therefore liberating herself, coming of age, saving her brother, all in one job lot, and discovering that she has friends in unusual places and doesn't need material reminders of same, right? So I hope that wasn't too kind of convoluted a metaphor, but I think it's it's very appropriate for this spirit of getting rid. And again, like I say, this is a very sort of blue heavy deck, and I do feel that when we cover exorcism in the blue reading, that will be appropriate for you too. And by then, because this is in some weeks, I think you will have gone further into your time in the sunshine, just kind of letting things happen for you, letting things fall off from the past that don't feel right anymore, and following Anansi down this train of synchronicity, passively drawing things to you, imagining the kinds of futures that you would like, but not really getting too attached to any of them, and just being glad that you made the correct decision to walk away when you did. So, if you'd like any further guidance, you absolutely can book a reading with me down below. There's also a PayPal link if you wish to donate, if this was particularly helpful, but neither of those are obligations. I'm just happy that you're on the channel. Please like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you do want to be part of further readings. There's also my Marseille mini-series, which is like a sort of A to Z randomisation, similar to this, but exclusively with a VAV Marseille deck from 1650. And yeah, I don't know what's coming in that, you don't know what's coming in that. It's been a riot so far. There's been some really weird choices of words and phrases, and you can add to those as well. If you're a subscriber, you can always comment more stuff to put in the kind of psychic tombola so that we can have interesting readings in the future. But I think that's all in terms of housekeeping, and I really hope you're proud of your decision to stick by yourself and excited about this playful new journey in the sun. All right, that was a good one. I like that. I didn't like the millions of interruptions, but it was part of the whole narrative, right? We have to go where Anansi puts us sometimes. Pile 3, the Marseille. Okay. Been a very interesting combination of things today. I think having red and orange in the same colour field as opposed to just doing singular subject readings is, yeah, it's leading us down some very interesting paths. So, with that in mind, excuse me, I am not done yet. Thank you, honestly. With that in mind, let's get to a reading about flow states. Right, now you can talk. What do we need to do about activities that get pile 3 in a state of flow, and where the future might be taking them? Okay. All right. We have a few to start us off. Ooh. In each pile, we seem to be getting an echo of the previous pile. So, oh, actually, no, that's of pile 1. So, no, that isn't the previous. You know what? You could have come from either pile, because we've got an 8 of cups, which references pile 2. A walking away from something that was pretty major, and we've got a 2 of cups in reverse, which references pile 1, possibly the dissolution of a relationship, be that familial, friendship, colleague, or in many cases with 2 of cups, heavily romantic. And then we have a Queen of Cups. So this is a possible person with strong Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces placements, or aspects to those things doing interesting stuff in transits. This is somebody of any gender who is emotionally in tune, potentially very intuitive, potentially moody, definitely nurturing, definitely communicative in a way that is threatening to some with its honesty, and it's not forthright in a swordsy way, it's just a kind of innocence of, I will be honest because the world is a good place, right? So if there's someone in your life that you're involved with like that, or if you identify as being like that, you're in the right place. What's this got to do with flow states? Thank you. Did you see that spinning? So some of you, you're spinning threads, and in that case, I would urge you to also watch Pal 2, which has strong references to spiders. You may be more an Arachne than a Nancy, sorry, but there's a spinning thing here. Although spinning can also be vacillation, so there's like an indecision happening. Okay, clarify this spinner, whatever it is, please. You want to come out, don't you? Okay, I'll take you. So the spinner is the Two of Pentacles, which I always think looks like a page, but he is a 2 in reverse. So there was a failure to juggle something here. It's like whatever was getting you into that state that we're on about, you were sort of balancing it out with a lot of other things, and that led you to have to walk away. So this 8 of Cups is actually lesser than it was in Pile 2. I don't feel you're leaving a major life moment. I don't feel you're in a big transition space. Excuse me while I just readjust for dead leg. And there goes my mic again. Sorry, every time, guys. You may be finding it difficult to communicate at the moment, or there may be something to do with sound in terms of what... Oh, actually, spinning and sound, you could be DJing, or it could be something to do with records, or I'm seeing like a vinyl going round and round. And then obviously that sort of... Yeah, anyway. But yeah, it's not the end of a major life transition as it was in the previous pile. This is just, you can't juggle all of these different hobbies, so you've had to let one go. Okay, but how does that relate to this? Let's have a look. Okay, so 9 of Swords, and I would say that's in reverse because I like it this way. So, there's something about sleeplessness here. Have you been doing something at night? Yeah. Oh, right, I get it. Okay, right. You've been doing something at night that gets you into a flow state. You perhaps live with this Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, or emotionally intuitive, feminine, but not necessarily female figure. And you're worried about the interruption of their evening, damaging your relationship. Perhaps this is a housemate who you don't want to piss off through your late night activities. Perhaps this is a partner or even a potential partner that makes you feel like you need to juggle your midnight hobbies, right? Particularly if they are sound-based, because we had that interruption with the mic, which I'm just checking is still there. So yeah, if you're making a racket in the night, you're playing vinyls until late and you're getting in a flow state and ending up like up until 4 a.m, or you're perhaps mixing music or making music of some kind, something along those lines, and you're maybe living with or around a person, or want to live or around a person who that wouldn't jive with, you're scared of keeping them awake. That's the literal 9 of Swords. Okay, interesting. 8 of Wands. So, now why would that be? You need to be clear at top one? Yeah, okay, fine. 8 of Wands with the 5 of Swords. We had 5 of Swords in the last pile as well, so you may have just lingered and followed on, in which case, welcome. Thank you for sticking with me. 8 of Wands with 5 of Swords. Hold up. I'm hearing, right, 5 of Swords is about, as I said last time, wins, losses, how you take either in a graceful fashion, or for me it's about those things anyway. And I'm hearing in my head the Fifth Element thing where Corbin opens his ticket to Lost in Paradise that's like rigged, and it goes, "You're a winner." So maybe someone told you you're a winner recently, maybe you just watched The Fifth Element, maybe that was part of your late night activity that may have been too noisy and woken someone up. If it is, that's great, comment down below. I love that movie. What's that got to do with the 8 of Wands? Let's have a look. Okay, so 2 of Wands. If you want to see it. There's a sense of feeling hemmed in. Yeah, maybe for some of you this is a shared space thing. and you're like feeling a bit trapped, but you don't want to be a dick about it because it's their space too, or because they've been kind enough to be there with you in the evenings, so you don't want to... let's have a neb. 8 of Pentacles. Okay, so this is work or working on something, mastery, craft, doing things a little bit by little bit. There's perhaps part of you that's considering working on something in shorter components that take up less of the evening for the sake of keeping the peace with whoever this is. But you don't want to. It would be juggling. And it would be juggling in reverse, which is like, I don't want to be like managing my time in that way. I just want to live freely. For some of you, particularly if you came from Pile 2, there is the option of maybe living with somebody that you're really drawn to that also takes you into a flow state, that also takes you out of the kind of mundanity of life and makes you feel very elevated. But the thing that's holding you back from maybe asking them or going further with this is not anything financial or even anything in terms of communication. It's can I still do the things late at night that I do for myself artistically, or can I still watch the things I watch, listen to the things I listen to, without having to do so in smaller increments and juggle it with the rest of my evening, right? So there's this very like, it's like a bachelor or bachelorette vibe. It's this very sort of borderline selfish, like, yeah, but are they going to piss me off though? So let's see, shall we? Oh, wow, you really wanted to, and you as well. That had already flipped within the pack, and so has this guy. Yeah, for many of you, this is a partner that you're thinking about because we just pulled the Lovers. So, Knight of Swords. Impetuous behaviour, perhaps inconsiderate behaviour, perhaps unwanted noise is very Knight of Swordsy. And then we've got an Ace of Pentacles, which is an offering. So for many of you, this is that you want to run in and offer somebody the chance to be with you, collaborate with you, perhaps live with you. It may not be that you're in the same like household necessarily, but you're just afraid that you will have to surrender this flow state if you're involved with this person in a more intimate way, shall we say. Doesn't have to be sexual, but, you know, just involved at more close proximity, closer proximity, should I say. Sorry for my grammar. And then we've got the Lovers. So for many, this is a romantic situation. And the Knight of Swords in romance can also be like, I want to message you, or I want to just rush in and like turn up at your house with a boombox. That kind of a vibe. But Knight of Swords is like quite often quite ill-advised. It's quite, it doesn't always give the intellectual consideration that more ascended swords court cards would do. It's perhaps the person who's very keen to communicate, but a little immature in their methods, or, you know, very eager to do something that isn't necessarily thought out. And I'm noticing that because of the remarkable qualities of the VAV, this horse's sort of badly drawn feet look a bit like they're stumbling over themselves. Badly drawn boy just came into my head, so maybe that's part of the musical stuff you're interested in or doing, or maybe that's what they're into, I don't know, some of you. But yeah, it's almost like you'd be rushing in, but your steed is not what it used to be. Or like you're afraid that you'll just trip and that it'll have been a bad idea anyway, and you shouldn't have made the offer because then you'll have to juggle other offers, and it's all a bit like, oh, for fuck's sake. If that's not the case, but it is romantic, you may be choosing between two people as well, because the Lovers is very much communication about that. Or you may feel triangulated by somebody, because in this card in particular, we have 3 figures below the angel. And those of you who know tarot will know that in the Smith-Waite, it's usually 2. And that in most decks, there's like 2 figures or 2 aspects of one figure communicating with each other, because the Lovers is kind of the upward mirror of the devil, right? So you get this overseeing thing, angel or devil, and then you get the 2 naked figures. So yeah, for it to be 3, it's like you're almost scared that someone's going to bitch about what it is that you're doing with your spare time, and you're like juggling several different things, and you just don't want it all to be like part of this person's thing. So that's why the Queen of Cups is in reverse. But also, sorry if you heard that, that was just me slamming my hot water bottle emphatically. But also, this Queen of Swords energy, Queen of Cups energy is really lovely. And if you were to choose a partner, quite frankly, Queen of Cups is a good card to get to describe them, no matter what their gender or realistic rank, right? It's just a very loving, affectionate, pleasant energy to be around. So I don't think that they would have beef with you having hobbies. I think that you're just put out by the idea of other people, by the idea of living with people or people bitching, or like, what if it's perfect, but I rush in and I fuck it up with this Knight of Swords? So yeah, I do get the sense overall that this is a love reading. Take it as it resonates, if it's like whether to move in with family or friends, or whether to have a closer connection with somebody in your life than you have in the past. But certainly it's at the core, it's this interference between I have hobbies that get me in a flow state and make me feel good, versus this person is not going to approve of how I live. For a very small number of you, and I hope it's a small number, it's porn. You don't want to be living with somebody and keeping them up at night because you trip and your headphones come out or something. In which case, Godspeed with that. Never had that experience, but then I'm not a porn watcher, so hey ho. Okay, so we've got a Page of Swords in reverse, looking a little bit sneaky, who reminds me of the Seven of Swords. A Page of Swords, again, is communication. It's like an attempt at communication, but particularly when it's in reverse and when it's this sneaky looking guy, we're talking about spying on somebody. We're talking, again, some of you followed along from pile 2, and I know you did. We're talking about maybe watching somebody online because you don't have the balls to sort of ask them, or investigating how open somebody is to see whether they would be a good companion to live with, or a good person to have around, or even whether they'd be able to collaborate on a project without just being pissy about it, because that's what's going on for some of you as well. It's like, will I have to walk away from this because I have to juggle my capacity to get into an artistic flow state with rubbing up against, like, somebody's just come in the room and interrupted it all, right? And again, if you're in pile 2, you know that we're dealing with interruptions, so that's even stronger for you guys. Okay, so then we've got a King of Pentacles who's pondering his fate in the sky in a way that is also sort of looking towards this angel in the Lovers. So it's like, is there something out of my control which I need to know about here? Is there a higher power? It's like you've got this idea of the pentacle that you were going to give, and you're keeping it very close to yourself. You're holding it, but you're also looking to the universe and going, anything, guys? Anything else I need to know? Which I guess is why you're here, right? And the response to that is the Seven of Swords. Didn't I just reference the sneaky motherfucker with this page, right? So that... Now, is this 7 you or is this 7 them? The World? Oh, right, so online sneaks, okay. High Priestess. I see. Right. The root of the problem, my dude, is not your hobbies, nor is it, nor is it your flow states, etc. Sorry, I can't be bendy in a space this small, guys. It's just not working. It's your fears about how mysterious the person at the other end of this seems. So whether it is a collaboration, whether it's a sexual thing, whatever it is, this Queen of Cups is somebody that you can't really get your head around with the High Priestess card. You don't know what they'd be like in this situation. And that's sending you into a sneaky, spying, not being quite honest with everybody kind of an energy that I'm not a fan of, if I'm honest. I think you should cut that shit out. And it is leaning into Page of Swords spying behaviour, particularly spying online or via social media, because we've got the World that came up, and the World is forgive the old nature of the expression, but the World Wide Web, right? For me, anyway. We're finishing with the King of Swords. So you're going to get your shit together. You're going to get a sense of what to say. You're also going to get sort of intellectual dominion over this situation in some fashion, whether that's just a very firm decision of like, yeah, I like my own space. I like being able to be a bit escapist or to get really involved in my own creative pursuits without interruption. I like being able to juggle several projects at once. In some cases, if you came from pile to several people at once without challenge. And that's going to be my decision in this. And if it's the opposite way, and if you do decide that you want to come in like this Knight of Swords and go, hey, I've got an offer, but also you're going to have to put up with me, then you're going to find a clearer way of saying that than what I just said, right? So last one with this King of Swords. Are we on the bottom? Right, okay. The Devil, which in this deck is just hilarious. I feel like there's like a Monty Python level of speeches coming out from those dudes in his kneecaps. But anyway, some of you, your flow state may not be to do with sound and you just listen to music, but it's some kind of sport thing that involves your knees, I want to say. Like, you could be a blader, skater, you could wear like knee padding to do some kind of group sport stuff, and you could be like practicing any of this at night, and that's what makes you feel like a weirdo, or like people are going to talk about it, or it's going to piss this person off. For some of you, you do have like a spouse or something living with you, and you're practicing some kind of extreme sport in the dead of the night, and they are quite rightly pissed off at the sleep that they're losing, hence the Two of Cups reversed. So, you know, many situations apply in a general reading, but I do find that quite funny. Anyway, the Devil. So this can reflect Capricorn energy. That might be relevant for some of you, but it's certainly, particularly in this deck, a sense of temptation, a sense of being in not even just two minds, but at least four from what I can see on this card. And kind of wanting to stay in that state, right? So again, it speaks to this thing of, I might have several things that get me in a flow state. I might have several hobbies. I might be working on 50 projects at one time and doing extreme sports in my backyard at 3 a.m. And I want the freedom to continue to be doing those things simultaneously, no matter how silly that is, how bad for my health, or who I piss off in the process. And this is kind of you in your King of Swords decision to communicate very directly that, no, actually, I'm not interested in changing my lifestyle. I'm quite happy unicycling through this garage in the dead of night, and fuck you. So, you know, good for you if that's you, but also don't hurt yourself too much, because the Devil card is, it's not great, right? I know that we can go into all the lovely spiritual ramifications of the Devil in terms of traditional witchcraft and the Booker and all of that stuff, but that's not what this guy is showing, right? We're in 1650 in France. We're talking about vices, okay? This is stuff that's going to get you. The word I got was murked. That's of all the choice words ever given to me directly from spirit in an audio form, murked is perhaps the most interesting one. But yeah, this behaviour, motherfucker can get murked, right? So just be aware of that, and like, don't put it all on this person that you have the potential to piss off, that you made the decision to carry on doing these things and keep wilding, because I think actually, you know, there may be room in all of these swords and sneaky activities for a spot of self-reflection, and to ask yourself perhaps whether with maybe some hobbies at a more appropriate time, or fewer hobbies, or a bit of this juggling that you're resistant to with real life, shall we say, or other, not real life, because that's a disrespectful statement to the arts, but with mundane life. there may be a rebalancing that needs to happen. And that is a theme that carries from the Lovers to the Devil as well, other than them both being obvious sexy time. I can't believe I just said sexy time in a reading. Crikey. Anyway. I don't know what's happening with you guys, but you're sending my energy just somewhere strange. Anyway, with it being that those two things are linked also by unification of aspects of self, unchaining yourself from the bonds of previous behaviours and temptations, maybe even previous people, and kind of choosing your path. That, you know, both are about choice. One is a choice to step away from addictions, temptations, negative behavioural cycles. The other is a choice either between people or between situations, between fractions of the self that have polarised value systems. So there's something linking these two that I really like. Some of you, there's piano involved because I'm doing this. And that is my piano hand. I mean, they're both piano hands, but that's the one I do that with anyway. I don't know what you're doing to my energy. I feel scattered as, and I think probably you do, and I think you're not admitting it, and I think that you're going, well, this person entering in, that could be a problem. Bro, the problem is you. The problem is, yes, get into flow states. Yes, use your time however you want to use it. Be playful, be passionate, be all these things that red orange communicates, right? This is why we're doing it with this coloured light. But also, get some sleep, look after yourself. Maybe don't have 12 hobbies in one evening when you've got work in the morning or when there's somebody asleep in an adjacent room. There's just a need for balance. That's what it is. An offers can be made, exciting new corners can be turned, nurturing to your creative activities can also happen, because let's not forget that despite your resistance to whatever this is, this person might actually be pro a lot of these things that you've been doing. They might be up for you doing sports in the night, they might be up for the porn, they might be up for the late night vinyl sessions. That might make their life more magical. You just never know. But I think until you get over yourself, pile 3, you're not likely to ask them, are you? I think that there's a lot of projection going on here of like, I'm going to be rejected and triangulated for having hobbies, essentially. When really you're rejecting yourself. You're triangulating yourself. If that's a possible thing to do. It's like the archetypal factions within you are warring with each other over this. And the simple answer is, decide what you want to do that isn't going to fuck you over, and do that. And that is a very King of Swords energy, right? It's the upshot of the negative King of Swords we had in pile 1. So rather than ruminating over what logically should be happening and making yourself nervous, we've got somebody instead taking a situation which could induce illogic and nervousness and saying, hold up, there's a right way to do all this, and it's got nothing to do with anybody else. We can handle them later, right? The thing to do now is to figure out what it is we want to keep, what it is that we don't want to keep, when to do things, how we can plan for being able to do more things, and how not to fuck ourselves over with the kinds of things we choose to do. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. That was a nice and snappy one, I think, compared to the others. If you would like to book a reading with me for further clarification or for information about spiritual pursuits, artistic pursuits, life purpose, next creative projects, work collabs, whether or not you're going to stuff it up if you do talk to this Queen of Cups person in a Knight of Swords mode, what their role is to you, what they're thinking, any of the above kind of topics. The link to my Etsy is down below. You can absolutely book me in right now. And there's also a PayPal donation button for if you found this pep talk / stern word actually useful and you want to just help me out, because this is my sole income. If not, that's absolutely fine. There's no obligation on your end to part with money, but I'm just glad you're here. And I'd appreciate you liking, maybe subscribing, maybe sharing the channel if you enjoyed it. Just passing me on, really, spreading the word. Because as I said in former piles, I'm not new to tarot, but I'm pretty new to YouTube. So the more notoriety / acclaim I can receive, the better, okay? So yeah, pile 3, you do you. I don't think any of your hobbies are inherently negative in themselves. I think you need to manage them. And I don't think that's to do with other people yet, even if it feels like it. All right? Take care.